One May evening, Thomas was returning to the sheds after a busy day's work. He had no more trains for the day and was glad of a rest. But when he reached Timothy's sheds, he was surprised to find almost all of the other engines there too. Why is everyone here? Thomas thought to himself as he backed into the sheds. Do you know what's happening, Percy? Thomas asked.
Shh!
Hushed Percy.
The Fat Controller is about to tell us.
The Fat Controller climbed onto one of Duck's side tanks and cleared his throat.
Ladies, gentlemen, and engines, this year marks a very important milestone for the railways of Soldier. May 2015 will mark 70 years since the first of the late Finn clergyman's books about our railway first saw publication.
The yard erupted into a loud chorus of whistles and horns. The Fat Controller politely waited for the noise to die down.
To mark this very special occasion, I, along with the other controllers, have organised a week-long gala event, with a special ceremony to be held at the big station at the end. You shall all be assisting in the preparations, and I trust this gala will be a memorable one.
Soon, preparations were underway, and the engines all did their part, delivering materials to decorate the sheds and stations, as well as collecting visitors from the docks. Gordon didn't complain about pulling trucks. And even Diesel was in good spirits. But Emily was a little confused. As she shunted trucks into the big station one day, she decided to talk to Edward.
Edward, can I ask you something?
Of course you can, Emily,
replied Edward kindly.
Who was the thin clergyman?
he was a man who brought worldwide attention to our railway by writing books about us. They are still very popular amongst people young and old, and even a television series and merchandise were inspired by the books. And when he retired, his son took over continuing his work. But sadly, the Finn clergyman passed away back in 1997, and this celebration is mark 70 years since the stories were first published.
It's a shame he can't be here to enjoy the celebrations,
Emily said sadly.
Oh, I'm sure he will be looking down on it all,
reassured Edward, and he puffed away. Soon, the gala had begun. Visitors from the mainland and right across the world flocked to the island. The Fat Controller had organised special rail tours along the branch lines. Thomas, Daisy and Toby took visitors along the Farquhar branch. And Duck and Oliver took visitors along the Little Western, in which the people would also be given tours of the small railway. Special demonstrations also took place. Mavis and Percy conducted the shunting demonstration at Anofa Quarry, while Bill and Ben did the same at the China Clay Pits. All was going according to plan, but the gala was soon to suffer a minor hiccup. Edward was taking a rail tour along the main line when he came to a stop at Vickerstown. The visitors disembarked and took photographs of the station and talks to the staff. Edward's fireman was about to uncouple him from the coaches to be turned around for the return journey when the station master ran up. "I'm afraid the turntable has malfunctioned," said the station master. "The workmen are working as fast as they can to repair it, but it won't be finished in time for your return journey. I'm afraid you'll have to take the train 10 to first." Edward was worried.
I'm not so sure about that, sir. It would be rather risky.
"It's a risk we'll have to take," Edward reluctantly agreed. He was uncoupled from the coaches and ran round to the rear of the train. Edward gulped nervously as the passengers boarded the coaches.
Here goes,
murmured Edward, as the driver turned the reverser and opened the regulator. The old engine had a sinking feeling in his boiler as he reversed out of the station. Then, it happened. He had only gone a few hundred yards down the line when his tender axles gave and came off the rails, followed by his driving wheels. Edward shuddered as he felt them crunch into the ballast. Moaned Edward in pain. Some of the visitors climbed out of the coaches and started taking photographs. Edward couldn't bring himself to smile for the cameras. Obviously. Douglas soon arrived with the breakdown crane. Are you alright, Edward? Douglas asked worriedly.
No, I think I've broken my tender axles.
While Edward was taken away, Henry took the train home. Some nights later, the engines were talking in the sheds.
I hope Edward is mended before the ceremony,
said Duck sadly. It wouldn't be right if Edward wasn't at the ceremony. After all, the Finn Collection's first story was about him. Gordon was less sympathetic.
Trust that old fuddy-duddy to come off the rails. You speak as if you think Edward caused the accident on purpose.
Snapped Duck crossly.
I haven't time for this. I must rest up before collecting the VIPs for tomorrow's ceremony.
The next morning, the engines were busy bringing people to the big station. The platforms had become so crowded that some people had to stand outside the station. The engines soon took their places. Thomas and Percy noticed Edward still hadn't arrived.
Oh, I hope Edward doesn't miss the ceremony,
said Percy, sadly. But at that moment, a familiar whistle could be heard. And to the engine's delight, Edward steamed happily in. Edward! You made it! Smiled Thomas.
Yes, indeed. Luckily, the workmen fast-tracked repairs to my tender, and I was able to attend the ceremony.
Edward's words had been cut short by Gordon's booming whistle. The big blue engine proudly glided in with the VIP train. The Fat Controller, along with a group of dignitaries, were the first to disembark, followed by a man in a blue overcoat. The Fat Controller took the stage.
Ladies, gentlemen, and engines. In May 1945, a book written by a vicar named Wilbur Chaudhry first saw publication. This book told a few simple stories about life on our railway. Since then, a series of books has been published telling the stories of each of the railways on this island, which was followed by a television series, which allowed us to tell our stories to the rest of the world. Now, I would like to hand the stage over to the Reverend Son, who not only was the reason our stories were told in the first place, but has chosen to continue his father's work. Christopher Audrey!
The station erupted in a chorus of loud cheers, whistles and horns as Audrey stepped up. Thank you, Sir Topham, for making this occasion a very memorable one. My father had a great passion for railways, and this one in particular. He would tell me stories about it as a child, and I am proud to see it has been shared around and 70 years later shows no sign of slowing down. Even though my father isn't here to enjoy the celebrations, I'm sure he is looking down and smiling. There are many railways in the world, but none quite like this one. Thank you. And as Audrey finished, once again, the station rang out in cheers, horns and whistles, and no other engines felt prouder than those on the island of Sodor.